Right. Everybody see the screen again? We're rolling. Okay, well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our winter sewing Zoom class. My name is Sarah Hutchison, and I'm a member of the Western Garden Club. Now, the snow is falling, and we're all itching to get a start on our gardens. But if you, like me, do not have a greenhouse or a cold frame, then this is a great way to create one and repurpose some common grocery items and grow some native milkweed. So I hope you all picked up your milkweed seeds. We have a tin at the Western Library in the foyer if you haven't, so please go ahead and pick up. It's a butterfly weed that we have there. And thanks, Christina, for donating those. The Western Garden Club and Le Château Farm have joined forces to promote this class, and I'd like to just kind of talk you through the Western Pollinator Pathway and just let you know what we're doing here. The Western Pollinator Pathway is a movement that started on the East Coast, and here in the Northeast we have, gosh, I think almost, is it 90 towns? Quite a few towns now that have joined in the East Coast, including Western. And what we're trying to do is just provide a habitat, safe habitat to connect host plants and food sources for all our pollinating insects and mammals. To join the pollinator pathway, all you have to do is commit to the following, which is eliminate harmful pesticides and herbicides in your yard, plant native plants, and reduce your lawn. That's the three things that we ask you to do. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce you to our instructor extraordinaire, Christina Cother. Christina is a Yukon Master Gardener graduating in 2020. She is the chair of the Western Garden Club and a Le Château Farm Commissioner. She volunteers hard around town and is a fierce lover of nature and all things pollinator related. And she also has her own woman-owned business called Nomadica, in which she gives back to other female entrepreneurs around the globe. With 3 children under the age of 6, I have no idea how she finds the time to do so much, but we are so glad that she does. Thank you, Christina, and over to you.
Oh, thanks, Sarah. All right, let's see. I'm going to change my screen too, just so I can see what I'm showing you guys. All right, speaker view. I'm speaking. Why is it on speaker view? All right, well, that's good enough. I'll look at Sarah. All right, so as Sarah said, winter sowing is for those of us who want to get a jump on the gardening season and don't have grow lights and shelves. They're really expensive. We don't have the space in our homes, and we don't have a greenhouse. So it's pretty much most people. It's really, really easy. You're taking advantage of what's going on outside. You can sort of set it and forget it, cross your fingers and go look in a while and see what's going on. Why do people want to do this? It's less expensive. It's an easy question. Okay. It's a great way to start seeds and keep them safe from critters. So if you think about it, native seeds are not only out there to grow new plants, they're also there to feed the wildlife. So if it follows its normal process where the seeds form and then the plant dies and the plant drops its seeds in the fall and they stay there, there's a good chance they're going to be eaten and you'll never see a plant. So one way you can grow native plants is scattering seeds in the fall, but you run the risk of nothing happening because it gets eaten. So winter sowing solves that problem. And it also takes advantage of the little like greenhouse that you're creating. So once they do pop up, it warms them up on the inside and it makes them grow a little bit faster. What seeds can you do this with? You can do it with all native seeds. What's a native seed? It's a seed from a plant that has evolved from a long time ago to grow in your area. Some great sources for native seeds if you would like more or to do some research. Prairie Moon Nursery, also on the web, also Prairie Nursery. So it's really easy to remember. All you have to remember is Prairie Nursery, and you can find both. They have lots of information on different native seeds. And the seeds have evolved to withstand our New England winters, right? So they have little layers on the outside of the seed that can withstand the freeze thaw, cold wet process that happens during our winter time. And as that happens, it breaks down that outer layer. And then finally, when the days, thank God, get longer and brighter, the seed sort of wakes up and it can start growing. So we're taking advantage of that process. Like if you were to buy a packet of seeds, as Sarah was saying right before we started, of native seeds, and you wanted to grow them, if you don't do this, you have to do some kind of cold moist stratification, like putting them in a wet paper towel and putting them in your fridge or something else to replicate that process. Otherwise your germination rate will be really low. You can also do this with cold hardy vegetables or other herbaceous perennials. What's an herbaceous perennial? It's a plant that comes back every year and it dies back, it sort of disappears from the surface during the winter time. So what's an example of that? Lettuce. You can do lettuce, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, kale, any of the vegetables that you normally do in your veggie garden, like as the first wave of crops, you can start them in here. We sent you Asclepias tuberosa, which is the Latin name for butterfly milkweed. It is obviously a native herbaceous perennial, and it's a host plant for the monarch. So this first year that you grow the Asclepias tuberosa, you won't get flowers, which is a bit of a bummer, probably if you didn't know that already, but you'll still get the monarchs. They can smell the plant, and these are the monarchs. They'll come and they'll find your plant and they'll lay eggs. And the eggs are super duper duper tiny, but you'll see the little eggs usually on the underside of the leaf, and then they'll hatch, and the caterpillars are these like little yellow, black and white stripy things. They start out really small and they go through different phases. They don't get quite this big. They get pretty big, but not quite this big. They go through 4 different instars. Is it 4 or 5? Correct me if I'm wrong. And then eventually they turn into the chrysalis, and then you're back here again. So you will get to enjoy this summer. If you're interested in native plants and you don't already know about Doug Tallamy, quick plug for him. This is his first book. It's awesome. I went from having a backyard where we'd go outside and have to come in around 4 o'clock with mosquitoes because the mosquitoes were just so awful, even though the previous owner had planted all the things that like keep mosquitoes away, like catmint. And now 7 years later, I mean, granted, there are a lot of native plants in my yard, but the system has sort of rebalanced itself. And I swear it's the birds that we brought into the yard with all the native plants to eat all the bugs, and everything has sort of balanced itself out. And this summer, we didn't need any bug spray. Like, we really didn't have a mosquito problem. And I would notice because my family complains a lot about mosquitoes. So check this guy out if you don't know who he is. And did everyone get the PDF I sent with the picture of Asclepias tuberosa? It's a bright orange flower. It's really pretty, and I should have tagged the page, but I didn't. It gets 1 to 2 feet tall and wide, maybe even 2.5 feet. It likes sun. It can tolerate dry soil, but it can also tolerate medium soil and partial sun. So it's really just a great plant to have in your garden. And the nectar also attracts lots of other butterflies. Where is it? Asclepias tuberosa. Anyway, I'm not going to waste time looking for it, but this is another great book, Native Plants of the Northeast. It's one of my favorites by Donald Leopold, and it just has like great information on all the native plants. Okay, so these are the seeds. Now, how do you winter sow? Okay, first thing you need are clear plastic containers. Juice containers like this, water jugs. It has to be clear. It can't be opaque because the sun needs to be able to penetrate the plastic. This is another example of one that works. I like the flimsier ones. They're easier to cut holes in the bottom of. I spent some time trying to get the holes in something thicker like this, and it's kind of a pain in the butt. You can also use a soda bottle. This is an example, and it still has food in it, but I wanted to show you of something that would not work. It is too short. You need at least 5 inches of soil when you fill your container. And the other thing, I actually did one to see if it would work, but you just have too much of a hole here. Like these all have somewhat small holes to get rainwater in. One of the problems that you can have is it doesn't get good enough drainage, and then your roots will rot on your seedlings. So something with a hole this big is just going to have too much water coming in, and also, you know, little hands of animals and whatnot. So that will not work. Some people like to use like the big salad containers that you get, like, you know, the ones that are like that tall and like this big. I don't know what size that is, but I haven't used those before, but I think I prefer this. Also, I should say that when I do this kind of project, I like to show it in a way that like you don't have to have all the stuff to do it. I'm fairly resourceful, and you can do this without buying anything other than seeds and soil. Okay. 5 inches. You're going to fill your container 5 inches. So the first thing you might want to do is measure 5 inches and draw a line. I like to eyeball things, 5 inches, you know, there, right? So the first thing we're going to do is cut. We're going to cut it because you can't pour the soil in here, right? So what could you cut it with? You could cut it with a razor blade, which I didn't have and had to borrow, but I'm going to show you how I would do it. I would just take this one, and you're not going to cut it the whole way around. You want to leave a little space that you don't cut, so you can pop the lid off and then pop the lid back on without, you know, the whole thing coming off. So I'm going to take a pair of scissors and literally just go like that. Doesn't have to be perfect. Go all the way around except for that one little spot. I also did it with a bread knife. That was a little messy. And then you just kind of bend it so it pops open. So now you have your little makeshift greenhouse like that. I'm going to cut it just a little bit more. An easier hinge. Okay, now for soil. Actually, before you do soil, the next thing you want to do is poke holes in the bottom. So you need to have drainage. Right now, it would just, the water would pool and rot and grow lots of things. So you could either use like little, they're called manicure nail scissors, and poke little holes. Or if you have a soldering iron, which I don't know really anybody that does, you could burn little holes. And I was like, ooh, soldering iron. I have a better idea. Let's take a screwdriver and a gas stove and stick the tip of the screwdriver right into that flame and get it nice and hot. And you can literally just poke the hole right in. I didn't get it hot enough. That was too ambitious. I also did it with a knife, but I melted the plastic all over the knife. And my husband keeps saying, what's on this knife? I'm like, I have no idea. No idea how that got there. So, and you don't want to obviously poke straight and poke your hand, so with a hot poker, but then you just poke the hole right in. So I'll probably do, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 holes in this little one. You can also take the box cutter or the razor blade if you have one and just cut a slash, and then make sure it's open enough so you can get water out, or that water can get through. It's not just like a cut that water has to find its way through. But I don't know, there's something fun about getting a screwdriver hot and ramming it through a plastic container. It's kind
Christina?
of fun. Yeah?
A metal chopstick also works really well.
Yeah, there you go.
The things we know.
I only have wood chopsticks that would not work so well. And you know, I said 4 or 5. I'm going to do 6 just to be safe, because yeah, better safe than sorry. So there we go. Now it has all its holes. I'll put that over there so I don't burn myself. All the holes in the bottom. Okay, now for soil, you'd think, okay, for soil, I should use like seed starting mix, right? Because you're starting seeds. No. You want to use potting soil. Seed starting mix, it just doesn't work. You need potting soil. If you think about it too, like native seeds are growing in whatever is out there. It's nothing fancy. I like to use organic because I'm organic in my yard. I'm on the pollinator pathway. So this is organic potting soil. And again, you don't have to have a bucket. This is a salad bowl. And I'm not even going to use a shovel because it's in my garage and it's cold outside. I'm going to use a measuring cup. And I'm going to fill the container. But first, the soil needs to be wet, pre-moistened. Sorry, my phone is buzzing. It needs to be pre-moistened and wet enough so that when you pick it up and squeeze it, water does not come out, but it stays together. So this is still too crumbly. So I'm going to put more water in there. That was probably too much, but we'll see. I'm going to make a big old mess. You could stir it with, let's see. I'll sit down so I can see you and myself. Okay. So let's see, I'm just going to mix this around and get it to the point where it's the right consistency. And it needs to be the right consistency because if you fill a pot with dry soil and then try and water it, like it'll move the seeds around and the water will just run straight through it and you'll never get like a good water. It's really hard to get the soil wet the whole way through if it's like totally dry and you're putting it in a pot. So this is better. There's a little too much water, but it's still like, see how it sort of stays together? So that's good. So I am going to just fill this bad boy right up with my hands. I mean, you can use a shovel or a little hand trowel if you want to, or you can use your measuring cup, but I like to do it like this. About 5 inches of soil. Pat it down a little bit, not too hard. You don't want to lose all the air pockets, but you also want to, pat it down just a little bit. Do a little more. All right, now, you should never handle seeds with wet hands. In case you don't use them all, you just make a bigger mess. So I'm going to just rinse off my hands and run all that soil into the well. It's just not good. Okay, so now we have this. And I've also put aside some dry soil that is not damp that we're going to use in a little bit. So here's my dry soil off to the side. Okay. Now here's when you have to decide something. At this point, you can decide whether or not you want to do more work now or more work later. And it's all based on the number of seeds you put in here. If you want to do more work now, you're going to put fewer seeds in here so that when they grow, you can take, it's called a hori-hori, or you could take a kitchen knife and you could literally just like saw through and scoop out the little like sections of plants. What that means is, so let's say if I choose this method, I'm going to put maybe like 5 seeds in here, 6 seeds in here. And then I don't have to go through the hassle of separating 25 or 15 seedlings in the spring or early summer. I can just cut and scoop, or I could even cut the container away and pull them apart and just be ready to go. Or you could put a bunch of seeds in here, and then when it comes time to take them out, you have to very carefully like dump it out and separate the little roots. And lots of people, this is what most people do. I have more time now, so I will probably do fewer seeds. I'll do the more work now, less work later. Okay, so we're gonna do butterfly weed seeds, the Asclepias tuberosa. If you didn't get them send me an email. I'll make sure you did. I know I mailed a couple packets out. So these seeds are they're really cool. They're like flat. I mean, you have your own to see, but here's the seeds. And then the general rule of thumb when you plant a seed is you plant it as deep as 2 times the width of the seed. Well, it's not very helpful if you don't know. If it's a flat, wide seed, if you don't know what's up and down and left and right. So for these, you want to plant them, you want to scatter them on the surface. So I'm going to put, let's see. I'm going to put, flatten that out a little bit. I'm going to put like one there, one there, one there, sort of like 4 around the outside. And they have a pretty high germination rate, so I'm not concerned about, maybe I'll do 6, I'll do 6 in there. And I'm just gonna make sure they have contact with the soil, tap them down a little bit. And then you take your dry soil, and I'm going to sprinkle 2 times the width of the seed, which is about 1/4 of an inch. And I'm just going to sprinkle the dry soil right on top. Dry soil is a lot easier to sprinkle than wet soil. It's more even, you don't get the clumps. So you're really just doing like a light dusting to cover them. Okay, now that that's done, you want to make sure that they stay put. So spray bottle. This is one that I bought as an impulse because I like green, but you can also just use like an old Windex bottle or any kitchen, cleaning product, clean it out really, really well, and then just fill it with water. And I'm just going to mist the top to make sure they're staying in place. Like that. I'm an aggressive sprayer. I think that's good. All right. So now they're in place. The next thing we want to do is make sure that it's labeled. Popsicle sticks. You can put one on the inside. And this is like a garden pencil, but again, nobody has a garden pencil. Everyone has a Sharpie, so you can use a Sharpie. And I'm going to write the date to, what is it, the 18th? 2/18 on one side. And I'm going to write Asclepias tuberosa. So the sun will fade this. So we're going to label it in a couple different places. And also unless you're doing like the same container and doing like 20 different ones of these, you could also just label them. We'll label them on the outside and then take a picture. So I'll be like, oh, the apple cider, that's Asclepias tuberosa. And you'll have your picture to look back in case all of this goes away. So we're going to tuck that right in there. We're going to close this up and then we're going to tape it shut. Taping it shut, you can use, some people like to use clear packing tape because it's clear and you're not losing any of that sunshine. Then other people say that that doesn't stick well enough and to use duct tape. So I'm going to use duct tape. And this, I don't know, I just found this in the basement. So actually, I don't know if this qualifies as duct tape or not, but it's white. It's still opaque. And you're just going to run it around the seam of, never been good with tape. All right, we're going to just run this. All right, maybe we'll start it where the hinge is and just put it there. Come on. There we go. All right. Oops. I cut my line a little unevenly, so I'm going to cut that. I'm going to raise that piece up a little bit higher. Okay. Make sure it's sealed nicely. You don't want any of that hot, humid air escaping. Okay. And now I'm also going to write on here what it is. So Asclepias tuberosa. Tuberosa. You could also color code it. You could do like Post-it notes and cut them into little pieces and tape them on with clear packing tape. And so you know all your pink one or all your orange Post-it notes are Asclepias tuberosa. There's lots of different ways to get around this fading or coming off. So now you have this. What else do you need to do? That's done. So this guy is done. He's ready to go outside. The rain is going to come in here. He'll be watered. And when you place them outside, you want to find a place that is away from your house. Your house is going to keep the temperature a little higher than it would if you put them out in the middle of your yard somewhere. So I'll probably, actually I have some already on a stone wall. I just put them, shoved them in the snow right along the stone wall. So I'll go add this to the stone wall and he'll sit there until around April 15th or so. And on April 15th, that's when I'll go and I'll peek in the top and see if there's any little seedlings growing. You should see some growth around then. This is when you have to start paying attention to the temperature, right? Because for the next March, April, 2 months, so 60 days, it's going to be going through the cold moist stratification process, freeze thaw, wearing that layer down. And then once it gets to around 75 degrees as a high for the day, that's when you have to cut or peel your tape off and sort of pop the top. Look and see it's draining a little water, so that worked. And you pop the top because you're going to cook your little seedlings. It gets really hot in there if you don't. So you can sort of pop the top and just, you know, as long as there's like a little bit of airflow, they should be fine. And you can leave it popped until you're ready to plant, unless there's danger of frost. And in Weston, I'll tell you what, Terry and I figured this out this year. You can't really go by what your app tells you. If it's anywhere near a frost, I'd say like 7 to 10 degrees near a frost at night. Terry, nod if you agree. You might want to just go close them up because the frosts here have been a little wonky the last year or two. So close them back up if there's danger of frost, and they should be fine. And then maybe like around May 15th or so, you want to take the top completely off. That's when you'll have lots of green growth and baby seedlings who are ready to go in the ground. You don't have to put them in. You can leave them in here. I know somebody who keeps hers for 2 years. She just lets them go for it. She uses the gallon jugs and just lets them have like 2 years of growth in here, and then she separates them out. I'm not going to do that. I'm not that patient. So around May 15th, I only have 6 or so in here. I will pop the top. I'll take a kitchen knife or a garden knife, and I'll sort of cut around, like saw up and down in a circle around the plant and gently scoop it out. And I'll pop it straight into the ground because I'm going to keep them in a place where they're sort of already exposed to the sun and the elements. So I don't think there's really any need to baby them. A lot of times when you take seedlings outside, you harden them off. So if you're growing something in your house, you can't just take it out and put it in the ground because it's been pampered in your house, and you're going to, give it a 1-2 punch when you put it in the ground. But these have already been outside. They're tougher. They're ready to go. So you can put them straight into the ground. You can pop them up into like 3 to 4 inch pots and then baby them if you want to. I joke that I'm sometimes like a hopeful gardener, so I don't care if I have a few casualties, but if you would be upset with a few casualties, you can pot them up and baby them and then put them into the ground maybe a month or so later, like in June. Let's see, I think that covers everything. You can save the containers and reuse them. You cannot winter sow tomatoes and eggplants and all the like hot season stuff. They will die if there's any danger of frost. So you can't do those, but you can always start those in like, you could cut the top completely off and do the holes, and you could start them on your porch in like June or May, maybe May, start the seeds, May, June. So you can still use containers to start other seeds. You just don't want to winter sow things that are not native seeds or the hardy vegetables that you do in the beginning of the season. So let's see, make sure I covered everything. Did I miss anything, Sarah?
Do you have to, well, thanks, Christina, this is amazing, but do you have to like pop holes in the top of it, or or the opening is sufficient for,
Nope,
for what?
that opening is sufficient. And again, like not some, you don't really, the biggest I would go for the hole in the top is like some of the like juice containers are like that. I wouldn't go much bigger than that. Like that rice one was just too big. And it'll get everything it needs. You can check on them and make sure they're moist enough. You can kind of get an idea by the weight of it. Like, you know, this is pretty heavy and you pick up like a plant that needs to be watered and it's pretty light. So if you go out and you need to look at them and they're really, really dry, you could water them a little bit, but you really shouldn't need to here. Yeah.
How much sun do they need when you actually plant them, like in terms of figuring out where to plant them, the seedlings in the garden later on? And thank you.
You're welcome. So it's different for every single plant. These in particular, like full, medium to full sun, so like 4 to 6 hours of sun a day. I have them growing in a couple different spots in my yard. I have like medium soil with maybe like 4 hours of sun, and they do just fine. He's very happy there. This plant develops what's called a taproot, which is one long root that goes down, kind of like think of like a carrot with little roots that go off the side. So once you plant him, like that's it, unless you're willing to risk losing him if you move him. So once he's in, just let him be. But the more sun, the better, and they can go super dry too. You're welcome. Are there any other questions?
I think it's so timely that you chose the butterfly seeds and for the monarchs, because there was a report recently that showed that the success rate of having milkweed in your garden, in a perennial garden, if you just have it in the perimeter, was actually, the success rate was higher than if you had like a huge planting of milkweeds in a meadow. So it's amazing how many milkweeds will probably lay their eggs on these small plants to begin with. So
yeah, that's great. And the numbers, I think the numbers came out for the monarchs that migrated, and it's not good. I think this was a bad year. The numbers are down. So the more milkweed we plant, the better. And again, it's the only plant that monarch caterpillars can eat. And the more of it you plant together too is better. Like if you think about like seeing a small sign versus seeing a big sign, like give the butterflies a big sign, plant a bunch of them together. And you're more likely to have the monarchs find the milkweed and come and visit your garden.
I want to say something.
You can do it now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's already ready.
Christina?
Yes.
Hi, this is Michael. I thought that was a wonderful, wonderful presentation. I'm trying to get my property very native, and there is an issue with deer, and I'm wondering, are these plants, how do you have deer fencing, or do these plants get eaten is really the question. Like, am I going to go through this whole process and then they're just going to be nice food?
Yeah, that's the question.
So I'm just wondering, do I put stuff around it?
No. So natives, generally speaking, are more deer resistant. A hungry deer will eat absolutely anything. I swear they're the dumbest animals I see in my backyard. But Asclepius tuberosa is known to be fairly deer resistant. I say that with like an asterisk. Like
right.
You will. I in 7 years have not had a deer eat my Asclepius tuberosa, but I've had them eat hemlocks and rhododendron, and they're not supposed to eat those.
Right.
I have deer fence, and they still find their way in. So it's kind of just like, I'm just gonna go for it.
Just plant a lot of them, I guess.
Yeah, just go for it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Quick comment, Michael, you can join the garden club or go on the Facebook page, and it's a great place to post questions like that.
Terrific.
personally, my front yard is a deer highway, and there are a few things I've had luck with, but definitely join the garden club, and you can bounce ideas off everyone there.
Terrific. I will. Thank you.
Love to have you.
Terrific.
And there's lots of other really wonderful natives. Some of my favorites that I found last year are heart-leaved aster. So one thing that's important in your garden is to have plants that bloom all spring, summer, fall, for all the different pollinators and the hummingbirds and whatnot. And this is a great fall plant. I'm going to look at those nails from digging in the dirt. Heart-leaved aster. It's really, really pretty. It's super easy to grow. It spreads. This is a wonderful plant, and it's really pretty in like partial shade areas because it lights up. It sort of lights it up with a big poof of purplish white. Another one that I really love is quinine. I might be saying that wrong because I don't know that I've ever heard anybody other than myself say it. But it's a white flower, and it's got a really funky like pattern to the petals, and like the structure is really cool, and it attracts some really interesting bugs. But the more natives you plant, like the more cool stuff comes to your yard. I've seen beetles burying dead birds. Well, that might not be cool to most people, but I thought it was really neat. There's lots of just really cool stuff that happens when you plant natives, and this is a really wonderful way to start. I have it all behind. Also, you might want to think about like planting it, especially if you have kids, like someplace where the kids will go and they'll look at it. There's a taller milkweed called Asclepias incarnata. It likes a little bit wetter soil. So right behind like an area where we sit outside, I have it all growing right behind the couch. So you can sit on the couch and you turn around and you're facing the milkweed, and you can watch the caterpillars and look for them. And it was a really great way to like engage the kids. So if you put it somewhere where you happen to be more in your backyard where you can see it, it's a lot more fun too. Make sure I didn't miss anything else. I think that's it.
I have a question.
You do? What is your
Yeah.
question?
How old do I have to be to join the pollinator pathway?
You can be any age to join the pollinator pathway. You don't have to be a certain age to join. I think you might already be on it. Would you like to join?
Yes.
Awesome. Are you willing to plant native plants in your yard?
Uh-huh.
Are you willing to reduce your lawn size?
Huh?
Are you willing to plant more flowers and get rid of some of that grass?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, okay. We don't want to spray any chemicals in our yard either, right?
Uh-huh.
No. Yep. All right, you can join.
Youngest member of the garden club.
Yeah.
Hey, I have a question for you guys. So we're about 4 years, I think, into our native
Journey.
gardening journey. And I'd say we have about, I don't know, a third or more of our property is now native. And the rest of it is still lawn, which we're trying to slowly reduce. But one of the things that we're focused on now is reducing other chemicals like gasoline from lawnmowers and stuff like that. How do you guys, where do you stand on all that?
Yeah, so I actually made that switch this year. There's an electric organic lawn care company. I think it's called Organic Ways and Means. I can send out his information. He's lovely. His name is Jeff, and he comes and he like plugs into the side of your house and mows, and he'll do a little leaf blowing. But I'm the last company that we used. I loved him. But I felt like I had to micromanage it. It was giving me anxiety every time he came because all I imagined was like caterpillars being blown to bits. But this guy is like the first guy I don't feel like I have to micromanage. He even, like, we have chickens and the chickens will be out in the yard and I'll be trying to get the chickens in so he can do his thing. And he's like, no, they're fine. They're fine. I can work around the chickens. So he's really lovely. And he does a great job. So I can send his information because like gasoline powered leaf blowers are atrocious for the environment. And I really didn't know until I did some research last year how bad they are. So that makes a big difference. And also when they blow, they're like hurricane winds for the bugs. So
Yeah, we're trying to minimize that too. So we left our leaves this year.
awesome. Oh, that's wonderful. Good for you.
Yeah.
And I also add, there's also the option if you have the time to do the mowing yourself. And even if you have a gas powered mower, you can mow much less. So I do my own yard, and sometimes I'll go like a month without mowing it, or even longer if there's a dry spell in the summer. If I see lots of things blooming and bees are working it, I'll just leave it, or I'll mow around that patch. So that's another avenue you can think about is mowing yourself and then just not mowing that much.
Yeah. Or even if you're not doing it, just mowing less in general.
This is my biggest dilemma right now. We've built a meadow, we've done a lot of this stuff, but reducing the lawn, that is such a problem for me in terms of having this mat forming European grasses and now trying to undo that and put in more American turf grass, or I don't know, but it's not as easy as it sounds, because I hear it all the time. Well, just replace the lawn, and it is not an easy thing to do. I don't think. Like,
do you mean like physically or mentally?
Physically replacing that lawn. It's not that. I don't think it's so easy, like solarization or cardboard or like I'm just curious, like I'm trying to figure out, like, we've been trying to sprinkle in American grasses, just dig holes and put in clumps of American grasses and little by little see what happens with that. Yeah. But it can get a little unkempt. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem that we're having with like neighbors. Nobody's saying anything, but we're like, wow, what do we gotten ourselves into here, man? Because we are not looking so tidy.
Well, I'm excited because we just got the pollinator sign a few days ago. So I'm like, well, we'll put that up and at least we'll be telling people what we're up to.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, like, definitely get a sign. That helps because same thing. I'm right on the corner. And we moved in, like everything, it was before I knew what I was doing and everything was like tidy and the American way it should be. And over the years, it's progressively moved towards beds. And it's exhausting. Most of the stuff that I've done to remove the turf grass has been digging it out. But I'm digging it out and creating like beds. And I've kept it manageable by doing like a project a year. So last year I dug out like 700 square feet on the slope of the hill that led to a stream, and I put in a bunch of plugs to fill in that area. What you're doing with like digging out chunks and putting in chunks of native grasses, that's fine. It'll take longer, but it's certainly better. You cannot just sprinkle seeds in your lawn and wash your fingers and hope that, but you can put in plugs and put in plants, and eventually over time, as long as you maintain control the invasives, you can convert that to a native meadow. It's just
right. Yeah, it's a fun project, but it is definitely I think when people buy into it, I don't know if everyone really gets the amount of work that in the beginning, at least, I'm looking forward to the day where it just takes care of itself. But 4 years into it, I'm looking probably at another couple of years yet.
You're on 7, right?
Yeah, well, it might even be 8. This is year 8. And I've made big sweeping changes. But I also was looking at pictures of my what's left of my grass. Every year, I really don't do anything except mow it every once in a while. But I do sprinkle clover seed, and the clover seed on like the patches. That's been really nice. I like seeing that.
Yeah, we've done a lot of that, and it is really pretty, and it's so great. So, but this presentation was fantastic. We really appreciate it.
Oh, good. Thank you so much for joining. I'd love to see pictures of what you're doing too. If you're on the Weston Garden Club Facebook page. You can post photos like all of us love to see that kind of stuff.
Well, my wife will have to do that because Facebook and we just don't get along. So I'm too old. I'm too old.
Look forward to doing some winter sowing soon. We'll come. Did you say that for people who didn't get the seeds, we could go to the library? Maybe there are a few there.
Yes, there's some at the library. You have to go during the library hours.
Okay.
I'll check and make sure there's still some there. If you have a problem, just email me though. You should have my email. And I can make sure you got some too.
Great. Thank you so much.
Terrific.
Thank you, Christina.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thanks, Christina. It was fun.
Yay, thanks, Sarah. Did you learn something or did you know it all?
I know a lot of it from reading. I know none of it from doing. So it was good to see you walk through the steps and
Fine.
yeah. No, we'll see. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you.
That was lovely. Good job, Christina.
Thank you. Thanks for coming, Taylor.
Bye.
Bye.